well, we can meet in the shul. He says, I'll get permission to meet in the shul. So we met in the shul. And that's how I got to that shul, just by mistake.
But how did you get to Ridgewood in the first place?
Well, I had a friend who was in that club.
Mm-hmm.
And I went with him to that club.
Mm-hmm.
And then we eventually moved to the shul.
Mm-hmm.
So one time we had I forget the name of the guy. You remember the name of that other guy? The guy that I switched with on a date? Anyhow, I had a date for 2 weeks on Saturday or something. And then I met Mom at a dance at a shul. And I asked her out. And
You
she
didn't
couldn't
meet
make...
me at a dance, didn't you? You used to come early to the club.
Yeah. We had dances and I met you there, whatever.
Well,
anyhow, I met her there. And
so what year was that? How old were you when you met her?
How old was
I think I was 17.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, how did we always say I knew you 7.5 years, and I was 24 when we got married.
No, it's anyhow, I met your mother and I had this date for 2 weeks on Saturday.
With Mom or with
No, with this another girl. And I asked her out for that Saturday and she said she was busy, and I said, how about the following Saturday? She said okay, and then I had 2 dates for that Saturday.
When you asked, the one that he asked out
Yeah.
that was busy, that was
yeah. So then
right.
I forget the name of the guy. I always knew his name. Anyhow, I said to him, I told him my proposition. I had 2 dates for that night. Would you like to go out with this other girl? He said, oh, so he did me a favor. He went out with this other girl. And he gave a whole story how I was in an automobile accident and I was laid up and I couldn't come. And I went out with Mom on that date, and that's the way we started going together.
So how did it happen that you were engaged and then you were unengaged?
Well, I think we got unengaged when I was in the Army.
Well, we got engaged because we had, all of our arguments came before. Whatever we argued over, I always say that we were engaged and unengaged. Actually, this was my second engagement ring. He gave me a ring before he went to the Army, and then we became unengaged.
You gave him unengaged before he went to the Army?
Yeah. And then when he came back...
So what was the dispute about? Why did you get unengaged?
Just ideological, all kinds of things that we didn't agree on. And finally...
Your mother was a lot more religious at that time too, I think?
Could be, but I don't think that was the main...
So what was the main thing, what was the main dispute?
I guess we weren't grown up enough to know what we wanted.
But what was the dispute about?
I think another thing was, I think I was afraid to get married, to tell you the truth. You know, like I say, Billy is afraid to get married. I think that when it got any too close...
Let's pick up your mother's voice?
Yeah, I'll pick up the voice.
I think when it got too close for comfort, I had qualms. So before he went back to the Army, before he went into the Army, I gave him back the ring. And then when he came back from the Army, I remember his saying, I've been all around the world and you're the one I've come back to. And we're getting married.
You remained friends while Dad was in the
Oh yeah, he wrote to me. He wrote to me.
I think your mother has every letter that
I
I ever
have all
wrote.
the letters. That's something you're going to have to throw out.
Well, they might make interesting reading.
Yeah.
How long
be.
were you gone when you went to that?
A few years.
Yeah.
How many?
3.5, 4 years.
Could be. Could be.
But in any event, when I got back and we got married,
Well, then you were going to give me back the same engagement ring. Then we decided we're going to wipe all the past clear and we're going to start from scratch. So I remember we went to the Diamond Exchange and we traded in the old engagement ring, and I got this one for a fresh start.
So anyhow, then we got married and we lived in a little attic in Rockaway. At that time, after the war, you couldn't get an apartment anyplace. And my mother knew Mrs. Wills, who had this big house. And we'd have to get to our attic apartment. Our attic apartment was really not an apartment. On the common hallway, there was a kitchen and a bathroom and a bedroom. Each room faced the hallway. You didn't have a closed-off apartment.
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't have much money, and in the winter time, when she ran out of money, oh well, we paid her a bigger rental in the summer than we did in the winter,
Because it was a
because
beach
it's at the
resort.
beach and she could rent it, you know, for a summer price. So when it hit the winter and she didn't have much money, we used to advance her some of the rent in order for her to get oil so that we can get some hot water. And the hot water really never came all the way to the top. I used to boil up some water in a kettle and pour it over Mom's head in the bathtub.
For a shower.
That's how we had a shower. And you couldn't walk, you couldn't stand up in a total bedroom. You could walk in the middle, but the roof went this way. So you couldn't, you banged your head against the ceiling if you walked too close to the
But we
edge.
had a lot of fun in that apartment.
Well, we had a lot of fun in that apartment.
So where in Rockaway were you?
96th Street, yeah?
Something like that,
It's in the 90s.
in the 90s.
And anyhow, what was I gonna say? Oh, we entertained people. We had a kitchen. We had a table. There were people around the table, but you couldn't get up to serve anything. Somebody would hand you the stuff from the stove, and somebody would hand you over here. That's how big this whole kitchen was. But we really had a good time
Yeah,
there
we
with
had a
all of
lot of
that.
fun.
We really enjoyed it.
And we went to Mexico for a month on our honeymoon.
Yeah,
Because we were never gonna travel again.
that's right. So then we
Little did
We-
you know.
What? Well, we figured that, where are we gonna get the, we were.
And
well,
we'd
we
have,
didn't
we'd
think
have to
how
come
we
in
were gonna get the money
have to come in every
travel.
day. Your mother was teaching at Grover Cleveland High School, and at that time I was in the cigar business, and I was coming in. And what would happen is your mother would get half dressed and finish dressing in the car facing backwards, because she had to look for the traffic cops, because I had to speed in order for us to get in, because your mother was always late. And then coming back at night, your mother, you know Shlomo Norbel? Well, she was taking courses with him, and
At
that was
the seminary,
before-
not
at the
necessarily
seminary.
with them.
that's
He was one of my teachers.
one of the teachers, and she was really wild about him. That was before we were active socially with them. And I had this Dr. Gregory Mason at NYU, and I thought he was the greatest. So she'd come from the seminary down to the,
Pennsylvania Hotel.
Pennsylvania
That's where
Hotel.
we met.
and then I'd come from NYU to the Pennsylvania. We'd drive out to Rockaway. She'd rave about Shlomo Noble, and I'd rave about Gregory
Well, we
Mason.
each would rave about the courses.
Yeah,
It wasn't the,
But we really had, having nothing at that time, we really had a wonderful time.
well, and another thing, you were actually working full-time and going to school full-time.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, and you always say that a minute factor, he worked full-time in the cigar business, and between the delivering the cigars and he would find a place to park at NYU. There was one term, I think you were taking 21 credits.
Yeah, including
That's
some
like
graduate credits.
Yeah. which
When I
was
got
like an
permission to take it,
impossibility.
from the dean, I didn't tell him that I was working. He
I-
was wondering whether I could handle it if I weren't working, and I never told him that I was working.
So how did you happen to, you were taking journalism there?
Mm.
So how did you happen to choose to do journalism?
Well, I always liked to write,
You know?
you know.
He still writes
But
very well.
did you expect to get some job in journalism when you got
Well, I
out?
thought so, but then I had family responsibilities. And what happens in journalism or in broadcasting or something, you gotta go out to the boondocks to start. You don't start in New York.
Mhm.
And it wasn't very practical. We had
But this big fact that Daddy always says that he would never have been able to do what he did if the situation around NYU today were the same as.
I used to, we went out and we sold cigars. We had customers, you know, accounts, stores. And what I would do is I'd start maybe in Flushing, and I'd work my way toward the 59th, we were in Queens.
Mhm.
And I'd work my way toward the 59th Street Bridge, so that and I'd figure out when I had to be in school. So I'd make the last stop in Long Island City or Sunnyside, then I can go over the bridge, I'd be closest to the school. And then I'd park and race to a class. Many times I had classes, went out back again to Queens, and then came back for an evening class.
But the big factor was that there was parking.
Parking, I could park. Today you can't park
Today,
anyplace.
if he.
There were not
he
even
always says
meters,
if
even if
the-
you wanted to run out every half hour, there were no meters in a lot of that area. Can't park at all.
He often says that if the parking situation
I couldn't have
were
made it.
different at that time, were what it is today,